Hi, good morning. We're trying to get us started on time here. All right. So, my name is Elizabeth Morrison. I believe you may have been receiving emails from me in the past. So, just a few quick reminders before we get started here. Excuse me. So, I'd like to have everyone, please, if you wouldn't mind silencing your cell phones, that would be great. If you haven't received a parking sticker, you can see Stephanie over here. She has one. All right. And without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker here, Alyssa Kapist. She's the social worker here at the Movement Disorder Center. She also works in cognitive neurology, and she is an instrumental coordinator for our Wellness Works program.
Anybody know what this is? David Bowie. Very good. And the name of the song is Cha-Cha-Cha Changes. It is. So when people phoned in and said, what the heck is this lecture about? I actually realized from the title, it wasn't totally clear. So I wrote a little bit of a blurb to try to let people know that that's what we're talking about, our cha-cha-cha changes. And, you know, for me, changes, I've been here at the hospital for 40 years. I don't make a lot of changes. I lived on Beacon Street 40 years ago, and then 10 years ago, moved further down on Beacon Street to a new place. So I believe, and somebody said to me today, oh, I love your necklace. I said, it's the same necklace. I wear it every single day of the week. I've worn it for 15 years. I don't have to think about it in the morning. So I'm not the best model of cha-cha-cha changes, but I do know that there are times for all of us when as much resistance as we might have to changes, that we really have to make changes. So I'm going to be talking today about a number of arenas regarding change with some underlying principles which are in the takeaways about how to encourage people to make change. I often thank my clients, who I say are my best teachers, and you have been. Some of you I've seen through the hospital, and some of you I know through the wellness programs that we have. But in making this PowerPoint, some of you are in it. And I thank you as well for agreeing to talk about your experiences, to share kind of some deep feelings and kind of talk about how it is that you fought the red light to move into the green light of change or got unstalled out. So I truly thank you all for participating. And for those of you who I haven't asked to participate yet, I'm thinking about my next talk. And I am always asking the care partners and individuals with Parkinson's to help me out on the talks, because I can only know it from my side of the desk, but you all are really there for the true story. So, Rachel, I'm already stuck. Oh, well, that's, you didn't pull that out for me. So, are you a planner or a procrastinator? That's a lot of what we will be talking about. And no shame or blame on any category that you may fall in. And I guess, even in the question of decision making, what inspired you to come here today? Anybody want to say, there were so many other things you could have done. It's the first beautiful fall day we've had in the whole month of September, and you're here. Why'd you come? Anybody?
Her.
Your wife, your partner,
Absolutely.
who has Parkinson's.
Correct.
So you came because she said, we're going?
No, it's support.
To support her.
Yes.
Okay. What motivated other people to come here today?
I felt I was meant to be here
You were meant to be here.
because we had a lot of things on our calendar,
Yeah.
trying to get everything done.
All
The
right.
kids being away, at school and stuff.
Yeah. So did anybody come here curious because they had no idea what I was going to talk about? Couple of hands up, Jim. Thanks for being honest back there. What is she talking about? But you did come, and really, you deserve you get a standing ovation from me for showing up here today. There are so many other things I know that are on your calendar, and making your way into the hospital center. Fortunately, we're not competing with the Red Sox today or this morning, but you could have stayed home and been watching CNN News and watched the bouncing ball. But hopefully you'll come away from this. I always say when I show up at some event, if I learn one thing or come away with one insight, it's worth the trip. So why is this topic important? Well, we know that life changes from the moment you hear the words, "you have Parkinson's." So it's the changes that we're going to be thinking about. And I should have said that my hope is to kind of get through these PowerPoints and then allow time for question and answers. PowerPoints are probably about 45 minutes or so. And then get you out of here by 11:30, if not earlier, because I know some people have hockey games or soccer games and lots of other things to do. So some real life scenarios that kind of distinguish the planner versus the procrastinator. If you had a really important appointment that was taking place and you'd never been to the location, here's what the planner might do. I tend to be a planner. I would check the route on MapQuest many times. And if I didn't trust MapQuest, I'd go to my car Navi system and I'd kind of begin to think about where I was going. I might say I'm so nervous about getting there, I'm going to take a test drive the day before or the week before. I would leave lots of extra time because I always get lost and I hate being lost when I need to be somewhere. And I might even, like I did today, lay out my clothes the night before. So that would not be a decision I would have to make that day. What does the procrastinator do under those circumstances? The procrastinator might say, I just love the adventure of finding my way. And I have a pretty good sense of direction. I think I'll rely on that. And I'll hope the traffic is light. So that's the scenario with an appointment. Now, you're patting her knee because I know
This is perfect.
Yeah,
Yin
perfect.
yang.
Okay,
Yeah,
the yin and the yang.
planner, she's a
So let me
procrastinator.
ask you, let me move the scenario to a dinner party. Okay, you're planning a dinner party. So help me think about, if you are the planner, what are you doing for the dinner party? Just shout it out.
Developing a menu.
Develop the menu. Joan, you're a planner, right? You got your menu ahead of time. You probably made the brisket and it's frozen in your freezer, right? Okay, so you make the menu ahead of time. What else does the planner do? Get the seating arrangement done at the table. What else does the planner do? Huh?
Clean the house.
Clean the house. What else can I mean, there's no end to like obsessing about the details. One other idea for the planner with the dinner party? Do what? Set the table the night before. You get as much ready as you can. Maybe get your plates out that you're going to serve on, the serving pieces. And what about the procrastinator? What are they doing? Huh?
Seat yourselves.
Seat yourselves, right. There is no formal seating plan. Come on in, glad you can make it. Just, have a seat wherever. What else does the procrastinator do?
Goes to the store a few hours beforehand to see what's fresh.
See what's fresh at the market. Why decide ahead of time? If the fish looks good, I'll get fish. If it's the, pork chops, that's what we're going with. So,
Frantically clean the house.
frantically clean the house, yeah. So here it is. The planner consults a lot of cookbooks, online recipes, tries it ahead, sets the table, does as much food prep as you can. The procrastinator, I'm going to see what's good at the market. I'll shop for what's fresh. I love trying something new. That wouldn't be me, but some people I just love. And when the guests arrive, ask them to throw on an apron, help chop those vegetables for the salad. So it's just different styles. Some notable quotables about planning ahead versus kind of going with the flow. Tomorrow is often the busiest day of the week. So always thinking about tomorrow. And then there's the adage that women plan. Women make all their plans, and God laughs. So sometimes all the planning that we do, and then there's some curveball that gets thrown in. If it weren't for the last minute, I wouldn't get anything done. And I perform under pressure. So on a more serious note, the author of Le Petit Prince, The Little Prince, a goal without a plan is just a wish. Failing to plan is planning to fail. So I talk with people about 3 levels of thinking. The first is the head, your brain, your intellect. I know many of you, and I know that's a really strong organ. You really like to think. And you process information with information. The other level of thinking about decisions is the heart. What are the feelings? And the third level, it's a Yiddish word, and I see Joan laughing, are Kishkas. Who here has heard of the word Kishkas? Thank you. Joan, can you give me a definition of Kishkas?
Oh, it's that uneasy feeling in the pit of your stomach. It's just the.
Yeah. Another Kishka? Yeah. Your gut. It is the raw emotion of your gut, the deepest level. So that's you can see the picture of kind of the bowels, the gut. So those are the 3 levels of thinking about information. And some of the decisions that I go through will deal with the brain, the heart, and the gut. So planner versus procrastinator, these aren't black and white categories. They aren't good or bad. And in reality, we probably all have characteristics of both. So advice for transitions, and these are some of the, you'll hear me kind of, these will be some of the threads. Don't worry alone. So it's teamwork between the person with Parkinson's and the care planner. Important to identify obstacles. What's getting in the way of moving ahead? Brainstorm solutions. And when you're brainstorming solutions, there's no bad idea. You're just getting ideas out there. And then have some self-compassion. This ain't easy. I just got back from a trip about a week or so ago from Uganda and Rwanda, where the goal was to find the mountain gorillas that are just in 3 countries in the world, Uganda, Rwanda, and the British Congo. I wasn't going there. So we found these mountain gorillas, and I need to put my mountain gorilla slide in here. They are big, strong, brave, and courageous. And that's what it takes to be in the business of trying to make some of these decisions. And they're a little scary. Anyway, the first PowerPoint deals with one of these decisions.
I am a procrastinator first and a planner second.
Can you describe both sides of your personality and the factors involved?
Yes, I don't like to face unpleasantness, unhappiness, and I'm afraid. So I procrastinate and avoid it and put my head in the sand until I get so anxious that then I talk to other people and learn that I can actually have more control of the situation than I realized. So I procrastinate out of fear and a sense of a lack of control. And once I get into action, I feel much better.
And what helps you move into the planning?
My support group has really helped me because there are about 10 or 12 of us who are care partners, and some of them have been where I am, and as I hear their stories and about getting help and how you use long-term care insurance or talking to an elder care attorney so that you have the money that you need to get the support and the help that you need to make your lives, both of your lives, as pleasant and as easy as possible.
Thank you. So that actually, I don't need to give the rest of the lecture, and I will, but that's the nugget. That is the nugget. Joan speaks to, she wants to put her head in the sand, and then she knows that strategy isn't going to work. So she needs to get information, She needs to make a plan, and she's a part of a support group, which is a lifeline for caregivers, to really reassure her, to hear from others who've been there, people who are debating making changes as she is. So what do I do now? I just press the arrow? Oh, that's so easy. So what makes planning so hard? With clients that I work with, I often reference Goldilocks and the Three Bears, because we are all seeking the just right porridge, not too hot and not too cold. So in decision making, don't want to make a decision prematurely, don't want to wait too long, don't want to spend financial resources now, don't want to wait too long. So it's often kind of finding the just right balance between decision and action and kind of waiting a little bit. So again, back to the intellectual level, Parkinson's disease, I think it's at Wolf Blitzer and CNN News, he'll say, this is a fluid situation, right? Things are changing. Parkinson's is a fluid situation. We know that life changes from the moment you hear the words, you've got Parkinson's. People in groups that I run will describe this as, I remember exactly what day it was. It was, April 5th. They remember what the doctor was wearing, how he said it, what they were. It is a flashbulb moment because it is such a powerfully salient moment. And remembering that every individual with Parkinson's is different. So the kinds of things that I'll be talking about here, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And the tough part to grapple with is that the timeline of progression is unclear. How do you plan for uncertainty? And in discussions that I have with many of you, that becomes, in some ways, the most difficult challenge, is that you have been planners in your life. And now, the doctor will say, I don't really know how fast this will progress. So how do you make plans when under this cloud of uncertainty, with obviously people hoping that they're going to stay well and do well for a long time? So nobody likes change. That's kind of the heart. We all want to hold on to normalcy, and we heard Joan speaking about that a little bit in the video that she made. And we all need hope. So does making change and some of these modifications mean that you're giving up on hope? Well, I don't really think so. It's a steep learning curve. Many of you lack experience in Parkinson's disease. So you come to these conferences, you go online, you read the materials. And for many people, you don't know the resources. I'm constantly learning new resources. I'll get, an email from a client saying, hey, did you know about this? It's like, no, I didn't, but thanks for passing it along. So I'm constantly a learner about what's out there. So one of the challenges are the practical matters. When you think about planning and the resources, they're not giving them away. So some of them cost money, and it could pose a threat to your financial well-being, and you need to pace yourself. If I spend the money now for X, what happens 3 years down the road if I need other resources? And sometimes the resistance to change is actually from a person with Parkinson's, might be from other family members. There isn't always agreement as to what the change should be, when the change should be, and then when there's price tag attached, how much these changes are going to cost. So, and the final challenge is that it's really all about those Kishkas. And sometimes if the care partner feels like they are kind of driving the change, they can feel like the bad guy. None of us like to make mistakes. We're all perfectionists to a certain degree. and that active decision making takes energy. It may be that either the care partner is frankly just out of steam, or that the person with Parkinson's says, I just can't begin to even wrap my soul around this change that you're talking about. And I've heard from many of you, I just wish someone else was in charge. And that there are layers of loss that come into play. And there's one tape that really speaks so well to that, which is now.
It's a very, very difficult decision. For him, it's one more thing that he can't do, go up the stairs often because of his disease. For me, it's also a huge sense of loss. I'm losing my bedroom, which for me has been a wonderful thing. I grew up with a small bedroom. My first house had a small bedroom. So when we bought this house, it was bright and cheerful and airy. And now I have to give this bedroom up for my husband's safety. And I'm willing to almost take a chance on staying upstairs. But I also know that if he falls down the stairs, I'm going to be guilty for the rest of my life, and I'll never forgive myself. So even though I'm trying to put a plan in place, the procrastination part of me, which is my comfortable place, is getting in the way.
So her head tells her, I've got to move to that small bedroom on the first floor. Her Kishkas say, this is why we bought the house. It's a sun-filled bedroom. To move to the first floor is a real symbol that his disease has progressed and that our lives are different. So it's not just about the pragmatics of moving from one bedroom to another. How does your current personal history influence your role? When I'm working with clients, I say to them, how have you made other important decisions in your life? So this may be about career, maybe you made a career change, moves that you've made to come to Boston, or moving out of a large house into a smaller place that was easier to manage. How did you even make the decision to have children? There are lots of tough decisions that you've made in the past. And I say, what was the hardest decision that you ever had to make? And then what helped you get over the hurdle to make that decision? And then it's always useful and fruitful to say, like Dr. Phil, and how'd that decision work out? So if people can reflect back and think about other decisions that they've made where they did kind of get behind the wheel and drive the decision, it's often kind of gives people courage about whatever decision they may be thinking about now. So the overview of some of the topics that I'm going to touch on, and any of these topics could be topics for an entire lecture. So just I'll be touching on them. Sharing the diagnosis, which at the very beginning, when you hear you've got Parkinson's, how do you share? When do you share? Who do you share with? And as many of you are in the room, that's how many different kind of strategies you figured out. Driving, automobile driving, having help at home, services at home, making a move, deep brain stimulation, and then I'm going to talk about taboo topics. So those ought to hold your interest. Sharing the diagnosis. Some people say, I am telling early. I left the doctor's office. I gathered my family the next day, shared what was going on with them, and then I had book club that evening, told everybody in the book club I needed to tell people. I needed support. I'm not a person that can sit on a secret. I needed to network with other people. I needed to come to meetings like this. If I wasn't going to share the diagnosis, what am I going to do? Show up with a bag over my head? I might see somebody I know. So, and some people say being open is just my style. Some people might delay telling because they're worried about the stigma. They might be concerned if I tell people, it would be pity, and I do not want a pity party. Some people are continuing to work and have understandable concerns about if I share at work what's going on, I don't know what the response will be. So we're going to hear from a woman who was working, teaching, and we'll hear a little bit about her story.
When I found out I had Parkinson's, I thought, well, this won't make much difference. And it didn't make much difference at first. I went on pretty much as I had gone on for my professional life. And just recently, after some years after my diagnosis with Parkinson's, but I wasn't ready yet to stop teaching. I couldn't conceive of my life without teaching. But my last teaching experience, I got mixed reviews, mixed student evaluations, and it was a shock. It was a real shock, but I decided that I'd have to do something about it.
So it was those student evaluations that really prompted her to make the decision to be open about her diagnosis, and then within the next probably 6 months to retire from an incredible career she had had in education. Strategies to consider around sharing the diagnosis: tell when you're comfortable. Start with family members and closest friends. Sometimes, if people begin to operationalize what friends and family can do to help, that is very useful. Highlight that you're getting good care. I say to people, reassure your friends and family that might be worried. Say, I'm going to a movement disorder specialty center and I am really getting top-notch care. So you don't need to worry about that part of it. Please just continue to be a friend. Continue to, socialize with us on Saturday nights. Let's continue to walk together. Whatever it is that you can say would be helpful, you can really take away the burden from friends around that you're not getting good care. So here's somebody that talked about needing to be proactive, and in sharing the diagnosis, you'll hear her say that, thank goodness she didn't put anything out on Facebook, and with what happened on Facebook yesterday, she's probably more appreciative, but let's listen to her.
But I'm doing pretty well, and I was always very athletic, so not a lot of people realize when they meet me, and even old friends wouldn't know if they didn't talk to me very long or see me. So how did I handle this? Usually I'm a procrastinator. I wait to the last minute, but I think I decided that I had to be very proactive because I felt I could determine my own outcomes. Well, I haven't put out anything on Facebook about Parkinson's. I haven't written that I'm raising money for Parkinson's. I just felt that was too public it wasn't part of my life enough to do it. I would rather tell people in a personal way, so.
Perfect. So telling people in a personal way was her strategy, and it's worked out really well. Driving, yikes. So remember Goldilocks and the Three Bears, not wanting to end driving too early, but not wanting to end driving too late. Oftentimes, people will come to me, doctors will send messages to me, is this person safe to drive, to continue driving or not? And it is the single most issue that brings family members and individuals with Parkinson's to their knees. So we're going to listen to one man who went through a program that I coordinate here at the hospital called DriveWise. And he describes his wish to hold on to driving, but unfortunately his challenges about impulsivity, which for him were part of the diagnosis.
I had been discussing the problems that I had with driving, which I didn't consider to be very severe. My wife thought they were much more severe than I did. And finally we agreed that I should have an objective assessment. I went to the DriveWise clinic at the Beth Israel Hospital and did the tests that they had, including driving tests, which I did fine on because they weren't testing the problem that I was having, which was impulsivity. But I did manage to make a statement with my wife that if I had another serious accident, I would stop driving completely. And as it turned out, I had a serious mechanical accident with no injuries to anybody, which was probably the best thing. And I've subsequently given up driving the car.
So he waited a little bit until it was too late, had a crash. Fortunately, nobody was severely injured, but he had made this agreement with his wife that if he got into one more difficulty, he would give up driving. And I have to say, he has been just really creative about finding ways to continue a very active lifestyle as a non-driver. So often the ability to drive and the piece of plastic in our wallet is seen as the asphalt identikit. You know, this idea that you kind of are what you drive, you are what you drive. Stopping driving is really by many people perceived as a marker that life has really changed. Sometimes people can say, well, with Parkinson's, things are not that much different. But if driving gets impaired or questioned, life, there's no doubt about it, is different. And in this scenario, nobody wants to be the bad guy, which is why I developed this program called DriveWise about 20 years ago. And we've seen about 1,000 patients in that time. And the, planning ahead and driving, if you can't drive, it may influence a move. And there's this idea that people with any chronic illness and just even aging, if you can gradually stop driving, and this idea of driving retirement, kind of do it slowly, it may be helpful than kind of suddenly stopping driving altogether. But the high risks of waiting too long, obviously, could impair safety for the person with Parkinson's and the public. Then you have to know what the red flags are. This next point I want to really drive home because whenever I'm giving lectures about driving safety and the DriveWise program, the most important principle is that age alone does not determine if you're safe to drive or not. We passed a 97-year-old in our DriveWise program. We thought he was safe to drive. And we actually published a paper that we call our over 90-year-old crew. And we've had probably 30 over 90-year-olds come through the program. And the better part of them, we found that they continue to be safe to drive. So age alone doesn't tell you anything, and diagnosis alone doesn't tell you anything either. We were funded by the National Parkinson's Foundation some years ago to do a video on driving safety in Parkinson's. And we decided that we were going to follow a man that was coming through the program who, when I interviewed him before he actually got to the on-the-road portion of the test, he had so many dyskinesias, I thought he was going to fall out of the chair. I'd never seen anybody makes Michael J. Fox look like nothing. I mean, this man was so dyskinetic. I thought, how is he going to drive? He got behind the wheel of the car. I think the driving instructor was double fastening his seatbelt. I was a little nervous. The man, when he focused on driving, what happened?
His dyskinesia stopped.
They stopped, yeah. And we actually had Dr. David Simon, who's head of our program, or maybe it was Dan Tarsi, the head then, one of the science talking heads, talk about that people with dyskinesias, actually when they get involved in a focused task, the dyskinesias can really move to the back burner. So it was with joy that we told this man, Mr. Rigo, that he was safe to drive. So there's always the balance of personal safety and public safety, and driving is probably one of the more complicated issues that I talk with patients and families about. Some PD symptoms that can make driving unsafe: sleepiness, changes in attention and concentration, impulsivity, motor changes, stiffness and tremors, side effects of medications. And some people deal with it. They say, you know what? When I'm off, I don't get behind. I know when I'm going to be in an off period, and I wouldn't drive then. I drive when I'm feeling well. Mood can impact driving safety. And then there are visual changes. People with Parkinson's tend to have, it's called, they lose their contrast sensitivity. So on an eye chart, we've got an eye chart, and it's like you can't perceive what's in the foreground from the background as well. So it's in the fog, for instance, objects could get lost. So for some people, that may be an issue. So strategies to consider around driving: have the conversation early, that the spouse may not be the best person to drive the conversation. That individual, I heard the laughter. No, it's you're between a rock and a hard place on that, no question about it, which is why our program, I think, serves such a critical role. It's an objective assessment. The concept of locus of control. People like to be in charge of their own decision making. If we can involve the person with Parkinson's to think about driving and safety. I've had some people come to me and say, I was so scared the last time I was out driving. I don't even know if I want to drive again. You know, either they got confused, they got lost, or something was scary about that last driving episode. And if you can make people feel good about retiring from driving with a good record, that can be helpful. For the family members, ride as a passenger with the person that has Parkinson's. Sometimes people actually haven't done that. It's like, oh, there's a good idea. I said, that's going to yield a lot of information. And involve your healthcare providers in the decision making. And use a formal assessment program like our DriveWise program. And sometimes medicalizing the problem to say it's really about your Parkinson's. It's not that you don't want to do it or that you're not trying hard enough, but there are some aspects about the Parkinson's that just get in the way. And for some people, giving the car as a gift to a family member, like a grandchild going off to college, can take the sting out of not driving. And for family members to know when everything else fails, and if somebody really is insisting on driving and you know they're unsafe, you can involve the registry, take away the car, or disable the car. Clearly, that's the last resort. And then provide emotional support for the individual around what the loss of driving is, and to think about what are the transportation resources. Services at home, shifting gears. How do you know when it's time to get help at home? So the challenges are, there's so many agencies. It's about losing privacy. Some people talk about when you have help at home, the costs of it, and the finances. Some of you may have who has long-term care insurance? It's a blessing if you were, if you had the foresight and options to buy long-term care insurance, which really can go a long way to taking the difficult part about should I get services, because long-term care can cover, if not all, a good part of the cost of getting help at home. So here's one of our partners who talked about being the spouse for richer or poorer, and what he saw as his responsibility to take care of his wife.
Well, I didn't. I felt that being the spouse, that for better or worse, richer or poorer, that it was my responsibility to take care of my wife, who had been very supportive of me when I had issues at a younger point in time. But it was definitely getting to me, and my adult children finally said, you need somebody to give you some space, some time alone. You don't have to go to her hairdresser appointments, her nail appointments, etc. Get somebody, and they actually put an ad in and found an individual that had retired, a nurse that had retired, and was looking for some things to do. And she and Susan bonded right away, and two of them being women, it was like, oh yeah, we'll go to get our nails done, we'll go to Costco, we'll go get our hair done, we'll go to Chico's, we'll go. It's another female that she can be with, and it just gives me the time alone to do whatever I want, and I am so glad that I wasn't totally stubborn and felt that I had to do it all, because it's mentally healthy for both of us.
All right. I mean, it's mentally healthy for both of us. Caregiver burnout is not a myth. Families often express growing concern about the care partner. My role as a clinical social worker, I look through the wide-angle lens, and I'll often say to the care partner, you're the hidden patient. And they'll say, oh, I'm not so hidden, actually. So, and when safety is compromised for the person with Parkinson's, then they can't be left alone. If that happens, then that really changes the dynamics at home. And if sleep is disrupted for the care partner, again, that's a critical crossroad. And it doesn't happen for all people. But if it happens, who of us can function on no sleep or poor sleep? So, again, we're almost at the end of the tapes here, but this is a care partner in a support group that I run who's very straight up with her doctor about the stress of caregiving.
I wish I knew. It's a really hard question, and I thought I knew, but it's a kind of wrenching decision, at least when it's a spouse. It feels a little bit like it would be like a divorce or a death, to be separate and to be putting him out of the house. So I think I'd know when I'm ready. My doctor always asks me, she knows him too, and she knows sort of what my life is right now with him, and she says, Laurie, are you going to wait until you're too burned out even to deal with a move, or until you're in medical trouble yourself? And I say no, and I'm doing okay. So I hope I know when I've reached my limit and when he's sort of able to make the transition still, and I hope those are more or less the same time.
So her doctor has fingers on the pulse as to how she's doing. Strategies, get informed about the resources, lots of ways to do that. Reframe the situation that hiring help is not a way of promoting dependence, but as helping people stay independent for longer. Sometimes I've worked with clients around, I don't really need the services, but if my wife wants them, it'll be a gift to her. And you'll see a tape of that in a moment. You can start slow with services. a couple of hours a week, 1 or 2 days a week. And if one plan doesn't work, modify it. If you have long-term care insurance, call to find out about the benefits and what you need to start them. So we're going to listen to this patient talk about in-home services as a gift to his wife.
So I guess that this is partly a present for Connie, because it's something that she wants, and it's very thoughtful of her to be so concerned about my well-being, that this is an area of concern for her. But I'm trying to address that need and to make a choice of the right person. And I think we'll both know when we arrive at the right person.
And how do you think help at home might be beneficial to you?
Well, I think that having another pair of eyes and ears, another good person around, if it's the right person, would be helpful to anyone. As an extension of, like a robotic arm, you have a person who's there.
So for all of you, you may feel, and it may be true, that you can do anything, but you can't do everything. So these are just some resources about services. I'm happy to talk with any of you about that. Your local senior center, home care agency can really be helpful. And making a move, boy, that's kind of like driving. It, again, brings gorillas to their knees. Are you stalled out? Some of the reasons people get stalled out about a move is they say there are only 2 things that keep me from a move: the basement and the attic. There are so many memories attached to your beloved home. Moving is a major life stressor. And downsizing means making decisions about a lot of things, and then you have to figure out, where are we going? So, again, I think this may be the last video about somebody who's grappling with the magical thinking of, I'm not going to get worse, but I need to. This is a woman who lives alone, so that shapes things maybe a little bit differently.
In general, a procrastinator.
And as you think about a move, tell me what you think.
I feel panicked, actually, because I don't do well with change. I like where I am. I realize that I always think in the back of my mind I'm not going to get worse. So when I think about the future, I think I'm still going to live in my house the way I am now, which is not true. But it's the art of magical thinking that I engage in. And I'm having had my parents live in a continuing care retirement community for about 10 years. I'm still, when I walk into one, I'm still in the younger generation. If I move to one, I'm popping myself up into another generation. I feel like I'm going to go from 71 to 85.
So magical thinking, watching her parents in a continuing care retirement community has framed her own thoughts about that. And we've creatively worked to get some services in her home that for right now is allowing her to be there with the supports that she needs as she's beginning to start to explore options. So for moving options, people think about a new home without steps. Some people talk about, I have adult children living in Washington. They're talking about building an in-law apartment for me, assisted living, senior living centers, and for some people, they may need nursing home level of care. Think about barrier-free accessibility. People remember the old term handicap accessible. That is like a totally, we don't even use that term anymore. The new term is universal design, UD, which is so much more inviting to me. And that's modifying furniture, doorways, counters, electronic devices. There are architects, builders, designers who specialize in that. And I was totally excited and delighted to find an article in the Wall Street Journal, Aging with Beauty, and it talks about young people having nothing to do with Parkinson's disease, but younger people in their 40s, let's say, designing a house with the idea that it's a house that they want to grow old in. And this Wall Street Journal idea, all of the various things that you can do to build in barrier-free accommodations throughout the house is really kind of a whole new area of design and excitement. In the words of Johnny Cash, should I stay or should I go? Tough. Wizard of Oz, there's no place like home. I mean, we know how much home means to people. And a front page article in August in the Boston Globe, I don't know if people saw it, but it quoted Len Fishman, who's a gerontologist, around a story by Beth Title, which is, and the quote was, the pull quote, "There's a window, and once it closes forever." That sounded a little scary to me. But the moving considerations, moving closer to adult children perhaps, there's this idea of a 20-minute village, and that's wherever you live. If you draw a circumference around that, you want to be 20 minutes by bus, by foot, by Uber, by car, some way, 20 minutes to the people, the places, the things that matter to you. Oftentimes when people finally make the move, they'll say, "Why did I wait so long?" Less stuff just feels like liberation. And a move often is framed this gift idea, whether you're gifting a car or agreeing to get services at home. Moving, adult children will say, "Mom and Dad, that is like a gift that you gave to us." Strategies for moving, early conversations, look at options. There are consultants, such as one locally called A Thoughtful Move, but there are many that can help you with the pragmatics of this. So deep brain stimulation, some of you were at a program that we ran 2 days ago, and I'm going to skip over this by and large, other than to say this is a huge decision for a lot of people. And if you're interested in hearing more, come up and talk to me and any of the other members of our team, because there are lots of ways to get information on this. It's an option for some patients, which is implanting an electrical device that sends signals to the brain and can be very helpful for people that have tremors, rigidity, and some aspects of bradykinesia, slowness of movement. Talk to your neurologist. BIDMC, there's a team assessment for people going through the workup for deep brain stimulation. Weigh the risks and benefits. Educate yourself. So this was a flyer for the event that we had 2 days ago, which was just wonderful. Some of you were at that. It's called the Ambassadors Program. And what's so cool about the Ambassadors Program is that in addition to hearing from our neurosurgeon and the neurology team, you get to hear from people who've actually had the surgery, and they're pretty inspiring. I'm going to skip over this video in the interest of time. It's a man who chose to have the surgery, and really it's an inspirational story, and it's really worked out well for him. But taboo topics are the financial and legal matters which we need to get organized for ourselves, whether or not we've got Parkinson's. It'll involve power of attorney, trusts, wills, medical directives, and working with a lawyer who has expertise on this is important. And then there's back to the Kishka issues, conversations relating to the end of life. It's so easy to get paralyzed with this. It's a taboo topic. If I don't talk about it, maybe it won't happen. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen for all of us. And a discussion that emphasizes, what are your values? What matters to you, not what's the matter. So surveys are that 90% of people feel conversations with loved ones are important, but only 23% of people have had them. And 82% of people say, oh no, my wishes should be put into writing. But look at the statistic about how few people have actually done it. There is this booklet that you can order online. I have some in my office. Wonderful. 5 wishes. It really guides the discussion. And you can see that it talks about picking a healthcare agent, kind of thinking about what kind of medical treatment you want, and really down to kind of my wish for what I want loved ones to know. I've been through this with my kids, and I've told them what kind of music I want played at my funeral. I want the Over the Rainbow song. It's not Louis Armstrong. It's there's a Hawaiian singer. Thank you. I mean, I'm down to the nuts and bolts. Like, that's what I want. And, I want it to be a celebration of whatever my life. So once I've had the conversation, I'll need to think about it again. Another really important group that has taken the lead on this called the Conversation Project. And this is the website. Do people know about them? Ellen Goodman, who used to write for the Globe, I don't know what she does now, she gives a TED Talk on the Conversation Project. And I don't care how resistant you are, after hearing Ellen Goodman, you'll say, I got to get going on this. So what gets in the way of everything that we've been talking about? Joan, in your little video clip, you talked about your head being in the sand. I hope you don't look like this when you go to the beach. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. So the strategies are just, here at the hospital, we have a Talk Turkey model. So before Thanksgiving, we give away information in the hallways about healthcare proxy and planning tools. And it's when you're home at Thanksgiving, which is actually coming up soon, oftentimes you've got family members around the table. It is a good time to say, you know what, let's talk turkey. And it's not just for people with Parkinson's. We'll all confront these issues, and feelings may be stirred up. Go slow, watch the Ellen Goodman talk, and there are printed materials that can help. But just get started. And some general ideas, which are some of the takeaways. Most decisions are reversible. You're thinking about a move, start to look at options. You decide when you look at the options, I'd rather, make improvements at home that incorporate universal design. You're not married to any decision. Think about a pencil metaphor. Decision making can have an eraser. Some people make a spreadsheet with pros and cons. Limit the information you take in, because any of us can get on information overload. Sometimes the strategy of, hey, if you were advising a friend on this, what would you say to the friend? That can actually be helpful. And then rely on trusted family and friends. But the most important takeaway is that you'll get through this. Keep humor in your back pocket. It's okay to get stalled out. Just figure out how to get back on track. Pinpoint obstacles and then brainstorm solutions. Attend more events like this. Come back throughout the year. There are other events that Ask the Experts. And in October, please put October 20th on your calendar. There's a beautiful color invitation for our fall symposium. It's a once-a-year symposium. I can assure you that this one is going to have the science and art and inspiration and music and song. I'd love to see you there. Support groups, as one of our videos demonstrated, they can be lifelines, both for the person with Parkinson's and the care partner. And I tell people, especially when they're newly diagnosed, don't think about the 100-yard dash. You will run out of steam. This is a marathon. Let's pace ourselves for a marathon. And then I love this kind of adage, don't let perfect get in the way of good enough. Maybe there's a good enough plan. Don't wait for perfect. You'll be growing old waiting for perfect. And back to the you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And sometimes when people say, this Parkinson's, is there any silver lining in the cloud? Well, in terms of how you handle that curveball, and how you handle the decision making that's ahead of you. I say it is an opportunity to model behavior for others in the family, for adult children. You can demonstrate how do you care for those that you love. You can demonstrate kind of this goodwill bank account in life. You give and you get, and there are times when you're making deposits and then times when you're making withdrawals. But it really is an opportunity for those around you to see the way in which you are resilient, because as I say, like, what are the choices? And the role of spirituality. I will ask people, and I had a conversation today with some new people, new folks that I just met this past week, when I said, what about spirituality? And they said, we don't really believe in God necessarily. I said, oh, no, but it comes packaged in so many ways. So what is it that makes you strong? And then to think about that and to think about how to tap into those resources. So for some people, it may be watching a sunset. It may be getting together with your grandchildren and family. It may be kind of taking a walk. It may be music. It may be art. Whatever it is, tap into it and use it. And think about the person, not the patient. And back to this concept of the emotional piggy bank, that throughout life, it's a process of making deposits and taking withdrawals. Nurture your connections. This is a video that is so wonderful, made by a woman who's participating in a grant that we've got at the hospital called Calling All Artists. If any of you are out there with Parkinson's and you do anything artistic, this is just an amazing group of people who are quilters, painters, photographers, musicians, rap artists. I'm sure I've left something out. Origami folders. These are incredible people. This woman made this video, which in fact she's now entered in a contest. I said, this is winning material for a contest in June 2019. There's an International Parkinson's Congress in Kyoto, Japan. I'm so excited to go to it. I'm hoping Marilyn might go to it, having had this chosen as a winning video as part of a contest that we're having. this woman professionally is so accomplished, and she manages her Parkinson's really well. So she'll be speaking on October 20th at the symposium. And when I saw this, I said, do you know how good this is? She said, really? I said, Marilyn, we're submitting this, and kind of, Rachel, you were helping her. We got all kinds of things. I'm hoping she's gonna go to Japan. Pick your card. I love it. So thank you for sitting for the extra few minutes, and I hope that the rest of your day is wonderful. Enjoy the sunshine. It's September, and I hope that we see you in October. Any artists out there, please join us for an artist meeting here, October 4th. And then I think the same week or a couple of days later, if you're a woman with Parkinson's, please join us for our women's coffee and discussion group. I don't know what date that is, the 10th. So lots of things to do, and thank you for being just an incredible audience.